Welcome to the Political Weekly with Ashok Malik. Today we will be discussing about the AICC reshuffle. Both the cabinet, Prime Minister's Manmohan Singh's cabinet as well as the party has seen some changes, some new faces. Some ministers have resigned and taken up responsibility in the party. To speak more about it, Ashok, to begin with, what are some of the biggest sort of takeaways from this reshuffle? Of course, Digvijay Singh, Ajay Maken. Anything more?
Well, Digvijay Singh, to be fair, had asked to be moved out of Uttar Pradesh in March 2012 after the defeat, after the hammering the Congress suffered in the state. And he looked after the state for 2 or 3 years, if not longer. And it was really his defeat. And he accepted responsibility, perhaps to shield Mr. Rahul Gandhi, and asked to be moved out. He was clearly tired of UP and defeated by UP, in a sense. It took the Congress a year and a half to move him out to Andhra Pradesh, which is also a very important state for the party. If he can retrieve ground there, hats off to him, though it will be difficult. In case of Ajay Maken and CP Joshi, both ministers, CP Joshi, a minister seen as very close to Rahul Gandhi, Ajay Maken seen as a likely successor to Sheila Dikshit at some point as the face of the Congress in Delhi. Both taken very seriously by the party and by the Gandhis, and they've been given responsibilities in relations to states that are very important for the party. So the AICC changes are more significant in that sense than the cabinet changes.
Okay, in terms of, let's first speak about Digvijay Singh. You mentioned Andhra. Andhra is really going to be a tough state for Congress. I mean, you have the Telangana issue, plus the government has in power for almost, I think, 2 terms now. So, will Digvijay Singh be able to make any sort of changes you expect, or is just a lost battle already?
Look, Andhra Pradesh, the Congress came back to power in the state in 2009 with, I think, 153 seats or something out of 294. A very narrow majority, but creditable that it come back. In the Lok Sabha elections held simultaneously, they won 33 out of 42 seats.
This is very good.
Huge number. The biggest victory in any one state in terms of seats. Now, today, repeating both those performances looks very unlikely, because Jagan Mohan Reddy has sliced the Congress into 2, more than 2. He's taken 2/3 of the Congress perhaps with him, and he looks to be the rising force. The Congress hasn't helped matters by making him a martyr in the eyes of his supporters, by keeping him in prison without bail for a year. And you can hardly accuse him and his father of corruption when the fact is his father was your chief minister. So Jagan Mohan Reddy's father was fine till he was your chief minister. The moment he dies, he becomes corrupt, his legacy becomes corrupt. It's a bit difficult to now, on Telangana, the Congress has had flip-flops, and they haven't played with a straight bat either. They are going to suffer because of that. What Digvijay Singh would probably aim to do is build bridges with Jagan Mohan Reddy for a possible post-poll tie-up, which is what the Congress is betting on. Will that happen? I'm not sure, because it depends on how many seats the Congress gets and what is there for Jagan Mohan. But in terms of the election itself, I'd say Andhra Pradesh is about as challenging as UP was for the Congress. I mean, it faces a real challenge there.
Coming to Delhi, interestingly, we know that Sheila Dikshit, this is going to be her 4th term fighting the elections if she wins. Ajay Maken was moved out of Delhi, moved to centre, primarily to make space for Mrs. Dikshit so that she doesn't have much of a challenge here. Now, there were a lot of rumours when he initially resigned from the cabinet that he might actually be made Delhi Pradesh Congress Committee chief, but that didn't happen now. He has become a general secretary. So, what sort of equation do you see there sort of evolving?
Look, I think Sheila Dikshit remains the primary leader in Delhi. I don't think there's any question about that. Yes, after 3 successive terms, there is a degree of anti-incumbency and fatigue the Congress will inevitably face, any government will face in Delhi. More than any other state, most states have assembly elections which are dependent on local factors and local leaders, and the national mood doesn't really come in except in a tangential way. Except I'd argue in Delhi, because Delhi is the capital, it's a city more than a state. It is more susceptible to national mood. Not always, because in 2009 or 2008, within days of 26/11, Sheila Dikshit won a third victory. However, if there's any state there are going to be 5 state elections at the end of this year, possibly 6 with Jharkhand. If any of those states could be possibly affected by the anti-UPA mood or the corruption mood or whatever it is, or a mood against the central government, it's Delhi. I don't think that's going to happen in other states, but it may just happen in Delhi. That makes this a difficult election for Sheila Dikshit. Now, what she has going for herself is her image. She has had controversies, but broadly she's still seen as a doer. And Delhi has changed enormously in the past 12 years. Not that people vote out of gratitude for the past, but she has had her achievements in the city. There's no running away from that. And her image is still reasonably okay, despite the controversies, despite the Commonwealth Games, despite all of that. She remains the party's top calling card. Ajay Maken has a future, but I don't think he's the face of
immediate
20 or 20.
But do you, in case Congress wins it, do you expect a midterm sort of change with Maken coming in?
You know, it's very difficult to predict, because yes, Sheila Dikshit is getting on in years. I can't see her lasting another 5 years. But the Congress has to win, and a lot of things have to happen. So.
Another very interesting development, as you mentioned, is Dr. C.P. Joshi. I mean, at one point he was taking care of Narega, the pet project of Mrs. Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi. Then he was moved to Railway Ministry for a brief spell. Now he's back in the party. First, Rajasthan. I mean, that's one of the states that's going to polls. C.P. Joshi is one of the prominent leaders from Rajasthan. Do you see any sort of role played by Joshi in Rajasthan?
Well, he's a veteran in Rajasthan. He is a Brahmin, which is a small caste, like anywhere in the world, anywhere in India, but almost anywhere in the world. But the Congress has had Brahmin backing traditionally, and they would need that if they are to come back. Vasundhara Raje and the BJP are giving them a terrific run for their money. C.P. Joshi almost became chief minister. He lost the assembly election by 1 vote, I think, which is very unfortunate. Otherwise, he may well have become chief minister in 2008 rather than Ashok Gehlot. Mr. Rahul Gandhi thinks very well of him. In making him railway minister, the Gandhi family was sending a signal, and the party was sending a signal that Manmohan Singh was not going to have his way in that tussle between the party and the PMO, because once Pawan Bansal, who was seen as the PM's man, was removed, the railway ministry was given to C.P. Joshi, who was seen as Rahul's guy. Obviously, this is a person Rahul Gandhi trusts and has confidence in, and Rahul Gandhi is, whether you like it or don't like it, he's going to be central to the Congress campaign. So I guess he's putting his lieutenants together.
But also the argument which some media reports seem to suggest that though there seems to be sort of patches of influence of Rahul in this reshuffle, but he still sort of, he fell back on the veterans.
See, Rahul's impact, if any, is there in the AICC reshuffle, because obviously he is the emerging authority in the AICC, and he will want some of his own people there, and that's fair enough for me. In the cabinet reshuffle, I don't know what people are getting excited about. Yes, veterans have come in. Sisram Ola will turn 86 in July, in the middle of the monsoon session. He's even older than Mr. Advani, as someone pointed out. Santosh Chaudhary, who's a veteran from Hoshiarpur. There were reports just a few months ago that an internal survey conducted at the behest of Rahul Gandhi recommended that she not be renominated because her performance as MP has been under par and she may just lose her seat. Manik Rao Gavit, I mean, he's a tribal leader. He's a veteran. He's got pockets of influence, but he's been around since I was in school. I remember his name from then, from the 80s. I get the feeling this is a bit of a golden handshake, and this is an expression I used yesterday on television, because I can't see Sisra Mola being renominated. Perhaps the seat will go to his son or someone from his family, because his son is also a minister, as far as I know, or an MLA certainly in Rajasthan. Perhaps Santosh Chaudhary is not going to be renominated as the report suggested. In the case of Manik Rao Gavit, this is his last, if the Congress doesn't come back in 2014, this is probably his last stint as a minister. So this is a bit of a golden handshake. This is a sort of last hurrah for some veterans. Now, people have said Manmohan Singh hasn't brought in young blood. That is true. But when has he encouraged young blood? He or the party? Because if you go back to 2004, look at the top brass of the cabinet then. Pranab Mukherjee in his 70s, Manmohan in his 70s.
I guess the average age was somewhere between 62 or 65.
No, Pranab and Manmohan were the better ministers in the 70s. There was Arjun Singh, who should have been retired, who wasted his time in the HRD ministry. I mean, we've lost time in the HRD ministry. We lost it, frankly, under Murli Manohar Joshi. We lost it under Arjun Singh, and we lost it after that under Kapil Sibal, because he was occupied with other things and couldn't get his bills through. So Arjun Singh was a disaster in the HRD ministry. There was no big cultural difference from the Murli Manohar Joshi era. You still obsessed with rewriting history textbooks, which is a very small part of HRD and shouldn't be part of the government's mandate at all. Then you had Shivraj Patil, who was a disaster as Home Minister. And after which you had a more energetic Mr. Chidambaram. Then you went back to Sushil Kumar Shinde, who was also an old-fashioned politician with a great past, and I don't know how rosy his future is. So if you look at the party, apart from Dr. Pallam Raju, who became cabinet minister a few months ago, there are no relatively young cabinet ministers. Sachin Pilot and Jyotiraditya Scindia, who are, I think, third-term MPs now. Jyotiraditya is a third-term MP. Sachin Pilot, I think, is a second-term MP. And the senior competent ministers are still ministers of state with independent charge. They're not cabinet ministers. So the Congress hasn't really encouraged young blood through 8 years. So why, or 9 years, why blame just yesterday's reshuffle? This is a problem the party has faced and the government has faced from day one.
Lastly, I want to speak about another two interesting faces in the reshuffle. One is Madhusudan Mistry, UP in charge now. Very interesting. We know again Rahul Gandhi's man, been pushed through. Another is Ambika Soni, returning back in charge of Mrs. Gandhi's office. Yeah. So let's speak about Mistry first. He's from Gujarat, we know, and he was picked up by Rahul Gandhi and sort of promoted through the ranks and has been performing well. I mean, he delivered Karnataka. Karnataka was expected to be a win, but what is your assessment?
Look, again, general chooses lieutenants he trusts. So Rahul Gandhi trusts Mr. Mistry. He's up against, of course, two strong regional parties, the BSP and the SP. But if you look at the BJP, which is the principal adversary of the Congress nationally, and which will take on the Congress in especially the small town and urban seats, which can go one way or the other in a national election. He's up against Amit Shah.
And that's interestingly, there are two Gujaratis against each other for UP.
It's not the first time two Gujaratis have fought for the soul of UP. It's happened once earlier in Indian politics, with rather disastrous results for the country, but we shall not go into that. Now, Amit Shah has a proven record as an organizer. Mr. Madhusudan Mistry is less proven, let's just put it that way. But what's important is they're both trusted by the respective generals, Rahul Gandhi and Narendra Modi. Mr. Modi again, Mr. Mistry, sorry, faces a tough situation because the Congress won 22 seats, did very well in 2009. It will find it tough to retain those seats. In fact, there are people in the Congress talking about those seats halving, if not coming down further. And even retaining that number would be a huge, huge ask. So he faces a tough time. He has to master UP quickly enough, which I'm sure he can do at a theoretical level. But in terms of actually getting the party energized, which is what, and getting people to mobilize votes, which is what matters, and changing the narrative and the mood, given that there is a certain degree of disappointment with the UPA government, will be tough. It will be tough for anybody, not just for Mr. Mistry. It was tough for Digvijay Singh in the assembly election. He's a much more seasoned politician. He's been chief minister twice and all that. So Mr. Mistry has a tough job ahead of him. Coming to Ambika Soni, seen as very close.
And it's the only person who seems to have so many responsibilities. I mean, we see she's now in charge for Himachal, Jammu and Kashmir, Uttarakhand. She's in charge for Mrs. Gandhi's office. She continues to be the minister.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of, like Ghulam Nabi Azad lost his party responsibility, but Ambika Soni sort of got more. Well, again,
And she's the
Mrs.
woman
Gandhi,
who cried when Mrs. Gandhi gave up her sacrifice.
she wasn't the only one of quite a few people.
But her got played up a lot, I remember.
Others also.
Yeah.
Right? Well, she's been close to the Gandhi family, and especially to Mrs. Gandhi. In fact, I remember in 2004, she said, "I refuse to become a minister. I'll work in the party." So her priorities, she became a minister subsequently, but her priorities have always been, we know where they lie. She sees herself as an old-fashioned political loyalist. Now, again, you see, a year before an election, it's not the time to go in for experiments with talent. It's the time to fall back on those you trust, who may have varying degrees of talent, but the principal attribute in an election period has to be loyalty and trust. Everything else flows from that, including competence. So whether it's Madhusudan Mistry, whether it's Ajay Maken, whether it's CP Joshi, whether it's Ambika Soni, what has become apparent is, everyone in the Congress claims to be close to Rahul Gandhi or Sonia Gandhi. I think this reshuffle has told us who is actually close and who is not. A couple of big names who went about giving interviews saying we were willing to quit the government,
Including a minister.
Who may need a haircut, who said we were willing to go back to the party, were not called back to the party.
Yeah.
That should tell us something.
Thanks a lot for talking to us, Ashok. Catch you later.